Have you ever wondered why some people seem to bend reality around them without ever raising their voice? Why a single glance, a subtle silence, a delayed answer can shift the balance of power in a room without anyone realizing they've lost it? It's not charm. It's not charisma. It's something darker, quieter, older, a forgotten art buried beneath centuries of noise. What if I told you that real control never looks like control? That the ones who dominate the world of appearances are, in truth, dominated by it? You were taught that influence requires visibility, that to lead, you must be loud, persuasive, agreeable. But what if influence, real influence, is born not from the need to convince, but from the ability to unsettle? The most powerful forces in the world are invisible: gravity, time, thought. So why would the deepest control be any different? Those who understand the weight of silence, who weaponize presence rather than speech, who master the stillness between movements, they become architects of perception, not by showing more, but by revealing less. The irony is exquisite. The more you try to be heard, the less you're listened to. The more you seek approval, the more you become invisible. But those who withdraw, those who make others lean in to understand them, they trigger something primal. Curiosity becomes dependence. The unknown becomes magnetic. The one who reveals nothing becomes the mirror where others project everything. This is not manipulation. It is the cold arithmetic of power, and most will never notice until it's far too late. But what if you could learn it? Not the theater of dominance, but the science of subtle influence, the unspoken cues, the gestures that collapse arguments without words, the pauses that make others confess. What if silence was not your weakness, but your sharpest edge? There is a door, hidden in plain sight, that once opened, alters not only how others see you, but how they behave around you. The question is not whether it works. The question is whether you're ready to stop playing by rules designed to keep you predictable. And if, for a moment, something inside you stirred, a memory, a realization, a shadow of a truth you always suspected, then you already know this path is not about domination. It's about liberation. To control without appearing to shape without touching, to influence without being detected. That is not a trick. It is a return to something ancient, something forgotten, something that cannot be taught, only remembered, and once remembered, cannot be unlearned. Welcome to the silence that commands. They told you power was loud, that it shouted pointed fingers and wore masks of certainty. But those who truly rule never raise their voice. They do not force, they invite. They do not dominate. They dissolve resistance by becoming the very silence that others fear. Control, in its most dangerous form, is invisible. It seeps through the cracks of perception, enters the bloodstream of thought, and before you even realize it, your will is no longer your own. Not because it was stolen, but because it was gently replaced. There is a reason why some people always get what they want without asking. A reason why you feel pulled into decisions you never intended to make. Have you ever left a conversation feeling smaller, not because you were insulted, but because something inside you was subtly rearranged? This is not coincidence. This is not charm. This is the art of silent manipulation, a craft so refined that its fingerprints vanish as soon as it touches you. It doesn't push. It bends the world quietly, like gravity pulling a leaf toward the earth. To master this force, you must first surrender the illusion that communication is what is spoken. Words are distractions. The real theater of control unfolds in micro-expressions, in pauses pregnant with meaning, in the calculated absence that makes someone chase presence. When you remove your emotional need to be understood, when you embrace the detachment of the observer, people instinctively lean in. They try to interpret you, explain you, win you. And in that effort, they reveal more than they know and give more than they intended. But this power comes with a mirror. For to influence others silently, you must face the noise within yourself. You must become immune to approval, anchored in your own void. This is not for those addicted to validation. The one who controls silently is not driven by conquest, but by clarity. He knows that to lead minds, one must first detach from his own impulses. Influence is not about adding pressure, it's about removing weight. What remains when nothing is imposed is pure gravity, and gravity never asks permission. They say the loudest voice wins, but the truth is buried in the quiet glance, the unspoken tension, the subtle withdrawal that leaves others begging for return. Control is not seized by force. It is offered by those who do not realize they are giving it. When you remove your need to prove yourself, when you cease to explain, justify, or persuade, you become a mystery, and nothing captivates the human mind more than what it cannot fully grasp. Curiosity is the leash no one sees, and the tighter it pulls, the more willingly they follow. What if you could become the silence that speaks louder than any scream? What if, instead of chasing validation, you let absence become your weapon? In a world addicted to noise, the one who withholds becomes sacred. The fewer your words, the greater their weight. The less you react, the more they obsess over your next move. This is the paradox of control. You must give up the illusion of control to truly possess it. Like a shadow cast not by presence, but by light denied. But here lies the test. Can you bear not being understood? Can you resist the urge to correct, to defend, to explain your depths to those who only see the surface? Power does not bloom in the soil of desperation. It thrives in stillness, in the refusal to chase. Those who control silently are not driven by revenge or ego. They are governed by something colder, more precise, the hunger for inner sovereignty, and from that place, every interaction becomes a quiet chess game where you've already seen 3 moves ahead. And when they finally lean in, when they ask what you're thinking, when they beg to decode the silence you wear like armor, you will know you've already won. Not because you forced them to submit, but because they chose it, guided not by fear, but by the invisible pull of someone who needs nothing from them. This is the essence of silent control. Not possession, but influence without touch. Not noise, but gravity. Not war, but surrender dressed as desire. Control, when stripped of theatrics, reveals itself as an energy, not something one takes, but something others unconsciously grant. Most people give away their power in whispers, in glances, in the desperate need to be liked, chosen, understood. The one who masters silence masters suggestion, and suggestion, when wrapped in calm, becomes command. Have you noticed how the quietest person in the room often becomes the center of gravity? That is no accident. That is a design. To control without speaking, you must become the void that others rush to fill. Your stillness becomes their discomfort. Your lack of reaction forces them to imagine 1,000 outcomes, none of which they can predict. And that is the true weapon, not the action, but the expectation of it. You let their mind do the work, their anxiety fill the gaps, their longing grow louder in the absence of your response. In that silence, you do not disappear, you multiply. You become the mirror they cannot stop looking into, hoping to find themselves, only to meet the reflection of what they fear and desire most. But this power demands sacrifice. You must give up your need to be seen as good, understood as fair, or validated as kind. Silent control is not about appearing righteous. It is about becoming untouchable. The less they know of your interior, the more they project into it. And projection unchecked becomes dependence. They cannot predict you, so they cannot prepare for you. And what cannot be prepared for controls without lifting a single finger. You become the storm that never arrives, yet keeps them looking at the sky. The letter never sent, yet always reread. The question left unanswered, yet endlessly repeated in their minds. In this invisible theater, you are both the stage and the silence between lines. And they are the audience waiting breathlessly for a scene that was never yours to perform. To hold silent control is to become the unanswered question that lives behind their eyes. While others speak to be heard, you observe to be obeyed. Your stillness whispers louder than their declarations. You understand what they don't, that every soul is led not by logic, but by longing. And longing is blind. It reaches out in the dark, searching for structure, for meaning, for someone who seems to know the way. That someone is not the loudest voice in the room, but the one who sees the hidden thread running beneath every sentence, every gesture, every crack in the mask. You do not react, you reveal, not through confrontation, but through calibrated presence. Your silence becomes a pressure, and pressure reveals fault lines. Watch closely, the way their voice trembles when you don't smile back, the way they over-explain, over-offer, over-apologize. They're not responding to you. They're responding to the space you've created, the void where their own insecurity echoes back at them. And in that echo, you are no longer a person. You are a force, not to be understood, but to be reckoned with. People crave permission to collapse. They want someone to quietly dominate the chaos within them, to contain what they cannot hold. Most don't seek love. They seek containment. Silent control is the art of becoming that invisible container. You don't need to impose rules. You become the rule. You don't have to define boundaries. You are the boundary, and those who come close either break themselves to fit or flee in fear of being seen too clearly. But beware, this power is not a game. It is a mirror, and mirrors cut both ways. To control others without a word, you must first master the voices within yourself, the ones that scream for approval, for justice, for closure. You must silence the parts of you that want to be heard just as badly, because in the end, the only one who can truly control is the one who no longer needs to. Control is not seized, it is absorbed. Like gravity, it is not seen, only felt. Those who chase power become its slaves, but those who embody stillness, who hold their own chaos with calm hands, become centers of gravity themselves. Others begin to orbit without knowing why. Their emotions curve around your silence. Their decisions lean toward your presence, and yet you said nothing. You simply stood where most collapse, unshaken, unwanting, unprovable. The deepest control is not over action, but over perception. When people begin to see themselves through your eyes, they edit their behavior to match your silence. They adjust their tone, rethink their words, retrace their steps, all to stay within the invisible standard you never spoke. You did not give instructions, you gave an atmosphere, and in that atmosphere they feel the weight of being seen without judgment, held without comfort, measured without mercy. They do not know if they want your approval or your indifference. But they know they cannot be neutral about you. This is the paradox of silent influence. It feels like freedom, but it binds more than chains. They believe they are choosing, while they are merely responding to the current you have set in motion. You do not pull, you allow. You do not force, you evoke. And in evoking, you awaken parts of them they long forgot. You become the architect of their self-perception, not because you demanded it, but because you made them feel it. Every word they do not say becomes part of your control, every hesitation, a rope around their will. And yet, the one who controls must carry the weight of invisibility. The glory is not in being followed, but in not being resisted. To be so precise, so internally resolved, that your very presence alters decisions before they are made. That is the final art, not to win against others, but to disappear from the game entirely, while the board moves as if your hands were still upon it. Control, then, becomes not a weapon, but a shadow, shapeless, silent, and utterly inescapable. Some truths do not arrive like thunder. They settle like dusk. They do not demand belief. They reveal what has always been hidden in plain sight. What you just witnessed was never a lesson on power, but a mirror of absence, of presence, of silence turned into gravity. The most potent forces do not knock. They wait. They do not speak. They listen until you hear your own soul echoing back what it feared to name. And now, perhaps without even noticing, you feel lighter and heavier at the same time. Something has loosened, a grip, a mask, a memory. But something else has tightened. A thread, a knowing, a vow made in silence. You are not who you were minutes ago, not entirely. A new perception was planted, and it will grow in the dark, watered by your quietest moments, your unseen reflections, your hunger to never again be moved by noise. Ask yourself, who holds you when no hands touch you? Who influences your steps when no words are spoken? Maybe it's not about controlling others. Maybe it was always about no longer being controlled by their chaos. Perhaps control is not what you do. It is what you no longer need. When the world pulls and you do not sway. When the noise screams and you do not flinch. When the game calls and you no longer play. That is the moment power bows to you. Let this not be the end of a video, but the beginning of a silence that speaks louder than anything you've heard. Let this be the note that lingers in your mind when the noise fades. You are not here to impress, explain, or chase. You are here to become the space others cannot define, but cannot leave. Because in a world addicted to being seen, the one who disappears becomes unforgettable. If something inside you was stirred, if a shadow shifted or a light broke through, let it be known. Share this with someone who lives in noise but longs for silence. Subscribe not to a channel, but to a deeper current within you, and speak to us below. Not to be heard, but to release what no longer fits inside your silence.